Okay, so I'm back with another video. This time I'm talking about the PlayStation 5 Pro once more and what's happened with that and what I think this means for Sony going forward. And the PlayStation 5 Pro has, much to my complete surprise, although I suppose I shouldn't be that surprised, sold out that PlayStation 5 Pro. Not only the PlayStation 5 Pro that was like 700 quid, not only did that sell out immediately, as soon as it went live, the PlayStation Pro limited edition PS5 that was like the grey colours and stuff like the original one, that was nearly £1,000, that was like 960 quid, that sold out immediately too, plus like the standard PS5. So what it says to me, and I suppose really this has been the situation for a while. I think I've just been slow to sort of catch on. Is that Sony have stopped really caring about games and are more focused on the hardware at this point. Like with the last generation with PS4, it was the exact opposite. I mean, they've always cared about the hardware in a way, but the focus was always on the games. Yes, they cover the specs and things like that, but in times past with the PlayStation 4, it was more the emphasis on look at this cool game that's coming out for our system. Look at this game. And the weird thing is with Xbox, they were doing the opposite. Xbox were the ones that were obsessing over the specs of the machine and how powerful it was. And again, the Xbox One X at the time when it came out was the most powerful console. Um, and they kept going on about that and going on about the specs and how good it was. And that strategy didn't really work for them. They didn't really sell enough Xbox Ones or Xbox One Series X's because there were no games on there that really people were that bothered about compared to, say, PlayStation 4. And if they'd already got PlayStation 4, then they're not likely to switch to Xbox. I mean, I didn't. So now it seems like they've swapped over and Xbox is focusing on the games and for a while has been focusing on the games. And Sony is now focusing almost exclusively on the hardware and things like the way the games play, the way the games look. But the games themselves aren't really that much of a thing for Sony now. Like, I think this is why they're remastering games that have already been out. They're no longer really caring about innovative games. They care about the hardware and selling lots of the hardware. And I think that that's how the business model has shifted. Is they know they have to make games, but their main focus and the main money coming in for them now is through the hardware, which is odd because with consoles it always used to be the opposite. It always used to be the principle that you lost money on the hardware and you made it back on the games. But now it seems to be that they're upping the price of the hardware to a ridiculous, what I think is a ludicrous amount, and people are paying it. Like those things all sold out, and I think that the more gamers do that, the more PlayStation fans like succumb to these sort of things. The more Sony you're going to do that. Like you're not going to see a lot of good games on PlayStation 6. You're not going to see this massive influx because where is the incentive for Sony to really spend billions on games, really new cutting edge games, if they're not making enough money on them and if people are buying the console regardless? Like where is the incentive to buy it unless the PlayStation fans are holding Sony to a higher standard and saying, no, this isn't good enough. We don't just want a PlayStation with slightly better graphics. We want some actual games to play on it. Because really, the gaming situation in PlayStation 5 has been pretty bleak for most of the generation. It's not been a lot. Nothing compared to the other generations of PlayStation in terms of the games. And that's what I mean about them changing the strategy. And really, when I look back on it since Jim Ryan took over, that was always kind of what they were doing. Like that's why I thought there was something very off about that PlayStation 5 reveal, because it was just talking about look how cool Gran Turismo 7 looks, look how good the graphics are, look how good the frame rate is, and all that's just been the conversation. And like because Sony are the like leading game makers in terms of console sales, like they are just, that is what they're going with now, and it's becoming more like I said before, it's becoming more what sort of PC gamers, what PC gaming used to be about, which is all about the specs of the thing. And I just think it's a real shame, but I think that in a way it's Sony's fans' own fault for not for supporting it, like, and I'll be honest, like, even as someone who now doesn't really like Sony anymore and doesn't like PlayStation anymore, I was fairly tempted to try and get one of those limited edition PlayStation 5 bundles. So, I mean, because that nostalgia factor is very, very powerful. But even above and beyond that, it feels like Sony now is very much like Apple, where you're just paying for it because it's Sony and it's the name, and you're paying a ridiculous amount of money for it for something that's almost no different from what the original thing was. It's just because that's the new coolest thing. And it isn't going to mean that you're suddenly going to get, like, I can't imagine they'll suddenly go out of the way to make amazing games PlayStation 6 now. I can just imagine PlayStation 6 is going to be full of even more remasters and remakes. There'll be another remake or remaster of, Last of Us. There'll be another remake, remaster of all these other things. And there are some games that should be remastered that PlayStation aren't doing. Like Bloodborne, for example. Like, I'm not a Bloodborne fan per se, but fans from Bloodborne have been calling out for a remaster or remake or something for years and years and years, for like 10 years now. That game's 10 years old, and that's the kind of thing that... but I suppose Sony kind of knows that, and they kind of know that, well, if they launch PlayStation 6 with a Bloodborne remaster, even if it's just a remaster, a lot of people will play it and will get it just on that alone, but that's only because they've withholding it for so long. Like, if they just released it now, there's nothing to stop them from making it now, but they're not going to. They'll wait until a point where they are completely dried up of ideas and go, oh, what are the games back catalog that we like? Oh, well, people like Bloodborne. I mean, Nintendo do much the same thing. They have a lot of their older games getting remastered, and they sell them for top dollar. But the Nintendo system is a lot less money. We're not talking like £700 for a Nintendo DS, a Nintendo Switch system. We're talking about 300. It's pretty on the cheap side to get into that ecosystem. And the games are always a premium price. That's just how Nintendo's always done it. But like, the remasters of even those games are better and more well intentioned because they're much older games they're remastering. And like, like Luigi's Mansion 2, for example, that game is trapped on 3DS. So unless you really want to get a 3DS and get a cartridge and go through all the hassle of doing that, you can't really play that game on modern systems. So remaking Luigi's Mansion 2 makes a heck of a lot of sense to me because now you can play it on a modern system. The same thing with something like Donkey Kong Country Returns, because again, that's sort of locked on the Wii, and not a lot of people have. Like, I don't want to go back to playing on the Wii and playing with the awful control and stuff. I'd much rather have it now. So I feel that Nintendo are remastering stuff that I would want to see. Like when I remastered Skyward Sword HD, I actually did want to see a good remaster of that because it was dreadful on the Wii. It looked awful, but the art direction and the art design was pretty good. So I just think that it signals to me that Sony are now going to lean even more into that because it's been such a success, because people have paid £700 for a console, which I think is ridiculous, but it's sold out like that. They are going to keep doing it, and the next PlayStation, I wouldn't be surprised if PlayStation 6 is like £1,000 because they floated that price point out there for this special edition PlayStation. It was £960, and I bet the PlayStation 6 will be something like that, in the region of £900 or £960 for PlayStation 6. I wouldn't be surprised because their business model or the way they're operating is no longer let's get everybody aboard and everybody play it. It's more like let's just target those people who have shitloads of money who will just buy the latest thing and they don't even really care that much about gaming, and they will pay top dollar for it, and that will make our profit rather than something that's like an entry level thing that everyone can play, And it is a shame because it's something, it goes against everything Sony has been about for the previous 4 generations, which was the stuff was always at an accessible price point. I mean, with the PlayStation 3, it wasn't. The PlayStation 3 was the one exception to that, where it was certainly not an accessible price point. It was like £600. But to give PlayStation 3 its credit, it was doing a lot of brand new stuff. It had a Blu-ray player in there, which was at the time brand new technology. So you were spending a lot, that accounted for a lot of it. And the graphical leap in PlayStation 3 was significantly better than PlayStation 2. It was still quite a big leap. Was it overpriced? Yeah, it was. But I still think when you look back at PS3 for what it brought and what it innovated and what it brought to the table, like, that was the first time you had a proper digital storefront, proper digital games. Yeah, obviously they took ages to download, but that was the first introduction of that kind of thing. And the integration with the PSP was pretty cool as well. So some games you got on PSP and you could download it and play it on... you download special bonuses from your PlayStation 3 and put it on your PSP. It was really good, and there was some really good old... That was the first time I remember with PS3 where you could actually rebuy some of these old PS1 games. And admittedly, they weren't redone; they were just the original ones. But I got something like, for example, Vagrant Story, which you still can't get on modern consoles now. I got Vagrant Story, and again, it's locked on my PS3, but I was able to play Vagrant Story on my PS3, and that was really cool. And back then, the PlayStation Store, in my opinion, was much simpler because it was all organized in a way where you could see where the games were. It's like, oh, I want a PlayStation 1 game. I click on this tab. Here's all the PlayStation 1 games. They didn't cost much. And of course, they weren't remastered to any extent. But you could play, like, original Crash Bandicoot 3. Like I said, Vagrant Story. There's quite a lot of good games there that you just bought for a bit. And actually, the PlayStation 3 was really good value for money when you got into that sort of stuff. And now you're spending so much money a month on a selection of games that isn't definitely always going to be there because they might change it out and get rid of it. Like at least on PlayStation 3, if you bought a game, it was then yours and you owned it forever. Like with the PlayStation Extra, the amount of games that just come and go from that service, so you don't really own them in any capacity at all, and you're paying like 15, 16 quid a month to play some of these old games. And yeah, they have been remastered, but you haven't even got the really good ones on there that you'd want to play. And so PlayStation 3 did it better. They did the retro gaming thing much better back then. And of course, early PlayStation 3s was back compatible with PlayStation 2. You could play your PlayStation 2 games on it. I never got one of those. But and PlayStation 3 did have very good games. It had stuff like Uncharted 2, which at the time was still one of my best gaming experiences. And I can't think of another game that's an action-adventure game that's come close to Uncharted 2 that I've ever played. And I haven't played Uncharted 4 yet, but, it was such a solid, brilliant, awe-inspiring experience at the time. And again, it was the beginning of HD graphics. It was the beginning of, like, stuff being in that higher resolution, high definition. So there were a lot of things that PlayStation 3 brought to gaming at the time. And so, yes, that price increase was quite high, but I feel like you were getting quite a lot of substantially new technology for that price increase when you look back at it and you think about it. Now, when I think about PlayStation 5 and what that's bringing, especially the PlayStation 5 Pro, it's not bringing that much anymore. It's not bringing that huge leap. It's not bringing like a brand new technology. It's got a 4K player in it, but the regular PlayStation 5 had that. So what are you really paying all that 700 quid for? I just think that and it's not even good or bad. It's just a change. It's a change in how Sony are operating. I mean, I think it's bad personally, but obviously some people won't. Some people won't mind paying that extra money. But I feel that my underlying fear or worry is not even a worry. I think it's a prediction. Is that the sorry state that PlayStation at the minute in terms of its games and its gaming release and its exclusives, that isn't gonna get better. This is good news for Sony, but it's not good news for gamers like me who like those old PlayStation games. And even in the PS4 era, I mean, especially in the PS4 era, they were at the top of the tree with their first party games. There were so many good first party games on PS4. It was unbelievable. Like, ever since there hasn't been that many good games on PS4 since the PlayStation 1, in my opinion, because it was above and beyond anything on PS2. Like, in my opinion, the games that were on PS4, not just when it launched, but as it continued to grow, because of course you had a few games that were holdovers from PS3 generation, like Original Last of Us, Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, that were great games that came out straight away off the back of PS3 and did look substantially better on the PS4, to be fair, than on PS3. And then you also had a load of new games. The God of War reboot was really successful. You had the Spider-Man game that was absolutely excellent. You had Ghost of Tsushima that was excellent. You had these new IPs. When you also had stuff like Last of Us 2, which I thought graphically was incredible, and also I story-wise incredible. I love Last of Us 2. Death Stranding, as I said, I wasn't a huge fan of, actually. Death Stranding is the one that I was a bit like meh about. But it does look beautiful. It does look absolutely amazing. And maybe one day I will go back to Death Stranding, but I just found it so boring difficult to play after a bit. I just gave up with it. But yeah, so there were a lot of good games on PS4, like Until Dawn, the original Until Dawn, which is again another game that's getting a remaster thing. There was a lot of really good games on PS4, and I think that PS5 it's just sort of drying up. And what you're just getting is redone, like Horizon Zero Dawn. Again, there was a new thing, PS4. So they were just killing it with all these games. Uncharted 4 was another one. And now it's like, where are all those games? Like, where is the... Obviously, we've had God of War Ragnarok, but that was also on PlayStation 4. It wasn't a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Where we had Miles Morales Spider-Man, and we had Spider-Man 2, so that's one. But all PlayStation 5 has got that's exclusive to its name is Spider-Man 2, um, and oh yeah, Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy Rebirth. And I honestly think in at some point those are going to go to other consoles because they haven't sold well enough on PlayStation 5, which says exactly the problem. There's not enough people who've adopted PlayStation 5. If you look at the numbers in Japan, there's still a huge chunk of people who just still game on the PlayStation 4. They've not even upgraded to the PlayStation 5. So because of that, Sony can't anymore, I guess, rely on a great a great first party game to sell because you haven't got enough people with PlayStation 5 to make it profitable. Like if every single person in the world who has a PlayStation 5 buys that Final Fantasy Rebirth, it's not made enough money because not enough people have a console in the first place. And instead of trying to get instead of lowering the price of PS5 and popping it down to 300 quid or 200 and something and chucking in some free games and getting everybody who's got PS4 to go to PS5, they've given up with that idea and they've just gone, screw you people on PS4, people who can't afford to upgrade, we're just going to make a PlayStation 5 for people who already have it and just charge them a bit more for it. And they've given up on, I think they've given up on trying to get those gamers over. So that says to me that because they're not going to get the numbers like they have for PlayStation 4, not even close to the amount of users that use PlayStation 5, 5, they're just going to charge ones who have 5 more and more and more for games that they're going to try and make for less and less and less. I think this is the other reason why we have so many of these remakes and remasters, because I'm guessing it must cost a lot less development time to make a remaster or a remake of something that's an already existing game that has something to base it on rather than starting a game from scratch that could take like 5 years or something, And obviously with that comes a huge, huge budget. I understand that. But like, what I really think is that it's going to hurt gamers like me in general, because you're not going to get the variety of really good killer first party games. I mean, Bloodborne was another one. So Last Guardian was another one, and those are just going to go because they aren't anymore focusing on that as their premier way of selling things. So, I do think, like I've talked about this before, but I do think at this point, with the PlayStation 5 Pro being an unmitigated success, which you have to say it is, like I can't say it's not. I can't stick my head in the sand and say, oh, it's failed. It hasn't failed. I wanted it to fail. I didn't want it to do well, but it has done well. And that's kind of sealed Sony's fate for good or ill. And again, I feel like the people who are still gaming on PlayStation 5 are people who are still like, think PlayStation's the greatest thing ever, is quite a small group now. I feel like that's becoming more and more like a niche group of people that they're just going to squeeze for more and more and more money. I say niche, it's not really niche. It's still going to be like thousands and thousands and thousands of people, but there's going to be many more people who I think are still gaming on PS4, who are like true gamers. People I class as true gamers still gaming on PS4 because what has PS5 really got? So PS5, like I'm saying, is now playing to the crowd that just wants to update for the sake of something and wants to update to see a slight bit of better resolution, have a couple of new features, and they will pay £1,000 for it. Like they'll play near enough £1,000 for PlayStation 6 if again it's 120 frames a second and it's 8K or that's the way it will be. It's like they will sell a PlayStation 6 on this game's going to be 120 frames a second. This game's going to have these really great graphics. It's going to be 960 quid or it's going to be £1,000, but you'll be playing the most best gaming, and then we're going to re-release, another version of Last of Us 2, another Resident Evil 1 remake for the 50th time, where you can see the individual like grains of sand in the floor or something. It's just going to go more and more like that, and it's going to be more and more obsessed with the games that are already out there and making those look as pretty as possible, and less about new and innovative, exciting, fun game ideas. And that's what I care about. And that's one thing Nintendo have always stuck with, is new and innovative and fun gaming ideas. And it's something that PlayStation seems to have just forgotten about, because there are so many dormant PlayStation IPs that could have come back this generation. It would have been great. Soul Reaver's one of them. I mean, yeah, it's great we're getting again a remaster of those old games, but why not remake that? Like, why not remake the first Legacy of Kain game, which looks like shit? It looks god awful. Like, I like Legacy of Kain games, but the first one, Blood Omen, it looks dreadful now. It's dated so badly. Even on PS1, it looked rough. So why not remake that? Why not remake that game, the very first Legacy of Kain game? Why not remake that for PlayStation 5? That would be like, wow, that would get me going. And then again, you could then remake all the others properly, not just remaster them, but properly make them. Other franchise that's sat dormant for ages, Killzone. Where's this generation's Killzone? Like, you're wasting all this fucking money on a shit thing like Concord. You could have made a new Killzone that was almost that same kind of gameplay, make it like a hero shooter thing, and it would have sold. Like, obviously people might have been upset with the change the way it plays, but Killzone was a massive PlayStation franchise. Jak and Daxter's another one. I mean, Ratchet and Clank is one that they're doing, but I'm like, there's so many things that are left on the shelf. Crash Bandicoot's another one. I know Crash Bandicoot last one didn't sell so well, but I'm like, where are you? Why aren't you utilizing all these great IPs that you already have? I mean, never mind coming up with new ones, which is cool. There's loads that have laid dormant for absolutely ages that could be brought back easily and still do really well. Look how well the new Tekken and the new Street Fighters are doing. Like, just bring back like Ridge Racer or something. Like, yeah, even like Ridge Racer. We've not had a Ridge Racer in flipping ages. Bring that back. There really is just like so many of these IPs, and they just don't want to be bothered. They don't want to be bothered bringing like a really old one. They'll just do something that came out last year. I won't be surprised if we get a remake of Horizon, the new Horizon game for the PlayStation 6. So it'll be like Forbidden West will get remade again before we get the next actual Horizon game. Yeah, it's sad. It's sad in my opinion. Um, and as I said, like there are some glimmers of hope with PlayStation here and there that do tempt me to go back. Mainly, it's Astrobot at the minute. I'm very, very much like tempted to get PS5 Slim just for Astrobot, but I'm going to try not to because obviously I don't have the money for it, and I don't. And as I said earlier, I don't really want to support Sony the way they're going. But it's just frustrating, because I don't think they'll ever change direction now. I might be wrong, but when this strategy is working so well for me, they've absolutely no incentive to change the direction they're going in. And I think it's just going to lead in the end. It's going to lead to much more expensive consoles, much more expensive games, much less creative games that are taking creative risks because it's costing so much to make them. So you're just going to get more and more remakes of existing things, and not as many people trying something new within that space because they're selling it based on graphics. So why make a brand new IP or a brand new cool style for game? You could just remake Resident Evil for the 500th time and people will buy it because it's just remake Resident Evil 4 again. Like, why not make it a second, third time? Like, I just think that that's where it's going. I hope I'm wrong in a way. I hope it isn't that bleak. But the fact that like everyone lost their minds over a Ghost of Tsushima sequel, and I'm sure that first game's good, but I'm like, and that was it. That was the one game that they had that was really an exclusive. I'm not including Horizon Zero Dawn, and that's a freaking remaster of a game that's already out. You had one new game for the PlayStation that's exclusive, because all the other stuff is going to come out on other consoles. Like the Luna Collection, that won't just be on PlayStation; it'll come out on Switch and all these other ones. Like, so it's like there's nothing for PlayStation fans to have, yet they're still sitting there thinking, "Oh, it's amazing." So it's like, well, there you go. Anyway, that's me stopping. I'm not going to say any more about PlayStation for a while now. I think that's my PlayStation stuff done. But you never know what might come up. But it's a sad day, I think, for me personally, to see how well the PS5 Pro's done, because it means now we aren't really going to get great games of PlayStation going forward. I don't think, at least not for a long time. So we'll see.